And we'll go ahead and get started. So if you haven't logged into Canvas, please go ahead and do that. And we're going to at chapter 7. And chapter 7 starts over in the Patrick text, this holy book, page 247. And if you look just to the left, you'll see really page 246, which gives you an overview of the chapter. And it's a good idea before you come to class to just take a look at that, because the key part of what we're going to do is we'll talk a little bit about indexing. And then they've also, this is the second part of the Oracle Data Dictionary. So I won't spend too much time in 7 for the simple reason you can read it faster than I can speak it to you. But I would encourage you to do that, and the reason being is that when you that passage there, that narrative, page 266 over to page, I would say, I guess essentially page 277, and the data dictionary, what that again, you'll get a sense of how Oracle is put together as a database, and you'll get a sense of their philosophy or their outlook in terms of handling relational data. And again, when you go out to work, you do have an employer might ask you, or you could offer it on your resume, I've had some experience with Oracle, a little bit. And Oracle's the #1 product that's out there in terms of these applications. Some others are kind of gaining some traction, but for all intents and purposes, Oracle is the top database. Now, what you'll often find is it will be married maybe to another application or be layered on top of something. But the data dictionary, that whole concept of what dimensions or attributes we define, how those are captured, i.e., a number or variable characters, etc., and then any constraints that we put upon them. It tells you everything about the structure of the table, but it also starts to tell you something about the structure of any fact tables that you'll want to generate. And you remember, as we were going through that example, Northwind Traders database that we looked at is an example. If you said, could you tell me one thing that really shows me a data warehouse and what it's all about, that would be it. And as you go and you start to look at the tables and see how they're organized, and then if you go in and you start to see how they're all connected, you start to see the flow of information that's implied by that database and their approach. As I've mentioned before, when Access was created, it was really never meant to be a widespread commercial product. Their idea was that people might keep recipes in it, or maybe a small business owner might use it, and that's why they developed a program, kind of a baby OLAP called SharePoint. And maybe some of you've worked with SharePoint before. It's where we can share documents. There's a cloud, I think, with Office 365, and we can link in, and it has some of the characteristics of a database, just enough to annoy you, and it's decent, but pretty fragile. So it's not something I would recommend for someone if you want really a heavy-duty database. So the key piece there in Chapter 7, really, that would be worth your time would be to give a good read to the data dictionary section, so that you can get again, you get a better feeling of Oracle. Yes, sir. Yes. What can I do for you?
I had 2 students that need to use a computer. They'll be quiet. They just need to use a computer. You got any space for them?
Looks like there's room at the end to me.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
No donkeys, no straw, no wise men. Those are my rules. Let's see how I integrate biblical stuff into my life. Take heed, young man. All right. So that's the key part. Now, if you come down to week 5, and if you come down to the 925, 927, you're going to see that I have, let's scroll on down here, and you're going to, not there, but down to 10, week 7. You'll see that I have a lunches database 7 loaded there for you. Now, what I'm going to do is I tend to go through the chapter, and I'll work through it. I don't try to do all of them because it would just take too much time. And frankly, once you've done one operation using a query, there's really no need to do it 65,000 times. So yeah, I'm fairly selective, and I provide that for you for 2 reasons. One, in the event that we're in the middle of class and the power goes out, you know, it sometimes happens around here. So it's a backup for you. Secondly, if you want to just explore it and see what's going on, it's not a bad idea, I think, to enhance your learning, to go in, for example, and open up that database and take a look at the code, look at some of the queries, and say to yourself, can I, just by reading the query, have an idea of the tables involved, the columns, that is the dimensions involved or the fields involved, and how am I going to try to create unique records? Am I using a where statement? Am I using a statement of equivalency? Am I using a statement where I'm searching for something I don't have? And let me see if I, okay. And let me see, awesome, okay. And again, the number is growing. Okay. Now, again, I'm working ahead as I usually try to do, and I wanted to make sure that you see as we move into these, I'll work a week or so ahead typically, and I'll upload a key or something you can upload as insurance. And this doesn't mean we're not going to try to do any work in class, but what it does mean is in the event something goes down or whatever, you've got that insurance there for the workshop. And you know, frankly, and I'll just show you from my book. You can see I keep notes, and each semester I'll kind of just keep a note and say, well, here's some of the problems. Here's some of the queries or business cases I'm going to try to run based on. You know, they give us a task at the beginning table typically, or view, and then the code, and then the results set. And so I kind of worked through them, and those that I think might be of some value, or maybe it just really depends. So there's a lot there to do. A lot of it, though, is just simply redundant or variations on a thing. If you understand, for example, the concept of where and what that means, then I don't have to have you do it 100 times. You've got it, okay? And you understand that it's going to either involve some trigger like a number or text or something, and you're basically saying it's like a statement of equivalency. Or if you give you a Boolean operator and say where it's greater than or equal to 100, then you pretty much see it. And I think you probably should be coming to the point where you say, okay, this isn't as difficult as maybe I had imagined that it would be, and it's not. But the more important thing here is I do want to make sure that you don't miss the opportunity to learn a little bit about Oracle. At the end of the course, I have there's a project for you if you care to do it, and you can download a baby Oracle you can bring a baby Oracle to your crib. Hey, how about that? Hi, baby Oracle. Okay, got it in your crib? Don't know all about that stuff. And it will be interesting for you because you'll get to see how similar that product is to all of the different database products that are out there. That being said, let's talk first of all about what we're going to look at. And notice over here on page 247, he starts to talk about the formats in terms of different dates. So we use some formats, and then over in 248, page 248 and 249, he absolutely blitzes you blitzes you with all of these different formats. My experience has been if you're working with Microsoft Access or a product really deeply derived from it, it's SQL or SQL, you're probably safe using pound signs. Now, that being said, you probably will be able to just simply go out into a graphic user environment and select the dates just using some kind of a little drop-down menu and not even have to worry about this, okay? That's my hope. But at least you'll understand that behind it is some programming about some decisions that involve, one, how do we want to store this stuff? Well, let me even back up before that. How do we capture it? Most of the time, if you go to a raw table, what you're looking at is the result of some kind of process where you went out and captured some data, okay, and you had to make some concessions to the data in terms of its formatting. Dates are especially difficult. And let's say you pull in 1 million records. I don't think you're going to sit there and go through them all, and you may not be able to update them all. So when you encounter that type of situation, most DBAs will go with the flow, give you what they can give you, and then count on you, if you can, to put them into another context to where they're understandable or usable. And so page 248 walks you through that whole process of those date formats, and it just really becomes then a question for you of storage, and it becomes a question for the end user. Do they truly understand what they're seeing? And you say, why are you talking about storage costs? Because I keep hearing about the cloud and this and that. That's true, and that's an important point. However, when you hit about, you can go up to about maybe 500,000, maybe 750,000 records, and server costs, marginal server costs it's very, very minimal. When you jump to 1 million records, it starts to go up. When you go beyond 1 million, up into millions, the cost goes up. And it's not the cost of the space on the server, it's the electricity. Computers need electricity to run. And when you have a giant server farm, if you had servers just in this room and you were running them all day and night, you'd have kind of a small little server patch is what you would call, maybe a garden. But if you walked in here, it'd be really, really warm because you're generating electricity. And that costs money. So this is one of the concerns that you have to be about when you talk about these displays of dates, numbers, and all that business. Well, I want to do this. Let's go ahead. And I've got the lunches database 7, and you can upload that there for your credit when you get ready. But I'm going to go over here and go ahead and download the Patrick materials to your desktop, okay? And then let's take Microsoft, that SQL fun file, all right, and put it on your desktop, and I'm going to rename it. And this is just for your benefit, and I'm going to call it Harmon LD7. All right. And then now I'm going to open the thing up, and I'll get all these warnings. And okay, yeah, right. Got you covered. And there is my warehouse. Now, what we've been doing each time we access that SQL fun database, we really now are using it like a warehouse. And a data warehouse, size is not the issue. The issue is its functionality. You use it as a place to store things, okay? And then to extract what you have stored. So there's that process of the extraction, and then putting it in, if you need to, refining it even further, putting it into a visualization of some type, and away you go. So we've got the objects there all lined out, okay? And I'm going to just make sure I'm going to save it as an Access database, and I'm going to put it up here on my desktop. It'll say, or exists. Yeah, I want to replace it. And there we are. Okay. Now, let's do this for just a moment and take the shutter and move it a little bit over to the right. So you have a little bit better visual, a better picture. Now, let's do this. We've got all the access objects, and again, you get an iconic view. Now, what we mean by iconic view or a GUI, okay, a user interface, is just simply we use pictures to depict certain objects. And all databases have the following objects. They have a table, they have a query engine, they have a report function, and they have a form. Then you get into things like what are called macros, where you save keystrokes. I think we did one or two. I think we did a case back in 1123, if you took it with me, where we recorded some keystrokes and ran some macros so we could press on an object, a little picture, boom, it would pop up. Okay, no big deal there. Now let's go ahead and click and on the top there, and let's look at queries. Okay, and we'll start to see some of these queries. And notice these are what we call, we've got a couple of views in there, all right? And we've got one to delete, and then we have what we call some queries that are constants. And I'll just open it up for a moment. You can see it's numbers. And the whole purpose of these is if we need to do something like serial numbers, or we need to set prices, or we need to hard code in a name so it will be recurring, that's what these typically are. Now, let's look at the forms for just a minute and see if there is. And here's an employee entry form, and I've talked about forms, so let's go ahead and open it up, okay? And then take the shutter and move it back so we can look at this form. Now, forms are really important because this is where you get the data that goes to the table. Now, the form is going to come one of two ways. It's going to come either some type of electronic interface that you have, okay, with a client, end user, or whomever, and they're going to fill out that form, and then it's going to be saved in the table. Now, if you go register for a website, when you register, they are having you fill in a form, and they will even include a password, a username and a password for yourself. So when you come back in, now why would they do that? Simple. When you come back in, they already have a unique record created because you'll be assigned a unique record. And the next question is okay, what are you doing? And maybe you're buying some more stuff, maybe you're ordering some more stuff, or whatever. Now, the nightmare is if you're living in a world of pencils and papers where people fill out forms and hand them to you. And as I've noted before, I work with a lot of churches, and they live that nightmare. The Sunday morning thing where they say, if you're a guest with us today, please, on the back of the pew, fill out this little card. We'd like to get to know you. And it, of course, becomes a way for them to contact people who have shown up and who may be people who are interested. And it's a nightmare because people will put inaccurate information. They'll leave information blank. And so it creates all types of problems. Okay? Now, somebody like Amazon goes even a step further with this form. The form that they provide also gives you a pop-up, and the pop-up is what we call a recommendation engine. And so when you go into Amazon, if you do much business with them, even if you don't, if you have even the slightest of a profile, when you log in, you go over there, they'll say, other people who bought whatever you bought, or here's some stuff you might be interested in. Then they'll give you a second level where they have high margin items they're trying to dump on the public. Okay, this is stuff that they got a deal on, they can make a high profit on it, maybe they get a really good contribution margin. Maybe it's an alpha beta test for marketing. Who knows? And the further you dig, the more that engine just records what you do. But it's called a recommendation engine. Now, there's another one of those out there, and it's a thing called Google. And Google gives you recommendations. You put in a search, and typically it will give you some examples or samples to resolve that search. And you'll either choose it or you'll just click and go for exactly what you want. And this is why we talked some again about search engine optimization and why it's so important. Okay? So the form here is, you can look at see. Now, a form is designed also to just take some of the tedium out of entering data instead of just entering data. And there are 3 ways you can do it. One is like I showed you Tuesday, where you do insert after insert after insert after insert query. Or, okay, you go into the table itself and you type data into the table and edit right there in the table, which can be just like mind-numbing. Or you have a nice form that's engaging that you can put the data in, and it has control. A key piece of all of this is making sure that you have control of the input. You say, well, why? Simple. If you don't, it's chaos. And if you don't, you may have trouble extracting information that you need. Now, right here, we have the employee ID, their first name, their last name, their department code, a hire date, their credit limit, a phone number, and then we have something missing here, and that's the employee ID, manager ID. And so all I can do is assume that this manager, that Susan Brown is a manager. Why? Because Susan doesn't have a manager ID. So what I have is the problem of a null record. Now, there's a difference between null and zero. Now, a lot of this stuff I'm going to tell you, you kind of sit there and you'll go, oh, okay. Trust me, when you're out there and you see a report where 3/4 of it is null, in other words, you have nothing, you'll be going, because you need the report. That's the time you run down to IT or call your vendor and go, what happened? And the vendor will typically do, or the IT folks will tell you, we did exactly what you asked us to do. Okay. So this comes back to some issues around data constraints, data integrity, and that's why all that business about the data dictionary is important. Okay, and let me show you. Okay, we've got this employee form, and let's just go ahead and close it for a second. And let's scoot the shutter back out, and let's go over to the tables. All right, and let's come down to the employees table, and I'm going to go into the design view. All right, now if you get the chance, now most of you will inherit a data warehouse, etc. You'll inherit it. You won't own the company. You work for them. They'll give you a certain amount of access. It's or based on security, based on your position. We've talked about that. But underneath is what you can and cannot get yourself into if you are not careful. Now, let's take a look for a moment at employee ID. Now, if you look down in the general properties, you're going to see something. Is there anything in there that tells me that I want unique records every time? Is there anything there that guarantees me that? Down in the properties. No one can see it. Yes, exactly. No duplicates. And if you look down there, it says indexed. Is it required? Yes. It's got to be required. You've got to have some. If you don't put in, if you don't fill out that piece of the, if you don't fill out that aspect, a line in the form, or you don't have that as you edit a table or update the table, the record won't save. Okay? It just won't save. And the simple reason being, they don't want nulls. They want to have every single record to be unique. And then below it, is it indexed? Yes. And the text talks about indexing, and then no duplicates. Now, indexing, again, is a pretty simple concept. The authors talk about it and give you some verbiage and all that. And in a nutshell, indexing boils down to this. When I create indexes, okay, which today with what we have in terms of databases really is an issue of programming, I'm telling the machine when I run a query, here's where I want you to go first, okay? For example, if last names, if I want to do a search of last names, I know that last names are clustered within a set of letters, at least in our alphabet. They're clustered within a certain set of letters. And so the machine's going to go there first rather than climb through every single record. And this becomes essential, very critical. If I'm talking 5 million, 10 million, 20 million records, 100 million records, it really becomes essential. Okay? And the reason that Google is so good at what they do is they have indexing. They've got it cold. They're masters at the art of that. And that's why they are who they are, because they understand that concept of indexing. And other data, back as the internet was really starting to get underway, and you had other other search engines. Bing was what Microsoft had. Yahoo has a search engine. Where they really could not compete was they didn't have the secret sauce, the algorithms that the folks at Google had. So the indexing was not as good, so that you couldn't get as fast and large a result set. And let's do something for a moment. I'm going to diminish this database I'm in. I'm going to go over here to the browser, okay? And I'm going to open up a new tab. And I'm going to do Google. And let's see, what do I want to search? Let's put Oklahoma Baptist University. Now watch something, okay? If you'll see, you're beamed in, you're going to see that I'm getting some possible resolutions. Why? Based on the number of searches. Maybe something in the profile of my IP. Who knows? And so I'll continue on, all right? And I'm going to go back here, and I'll go Oklahoma. I'll resolve it myself. And then I'll put the B, okay? And here we go, Oklahoma Baptist University, and away we go. Now it told me, if you look right here for a moment, you're going to see something very startling. They gave you about 9 million results in 6.66 seconds. They timed themselves. And it's also a challenge to everybody else in the world to say, hey, if you think you can do this faster and better, call us and we'll try it. 9 million results in 0.66. I have no idea how I survived watching TV without Google, because especially if you're like me and I know there are probably some of you who secretly, and I don't want you to admit it, may watch, I think it's the thing, Andy and Mayberry, okay? And has a little, Andy, he's the sheriff, and Andy Griffith, I think it's Andy Griffin or Andy Griffith, he's the sheriff in the town of Mayberry. Don't admit it, you'll embarrass yourself. I know, I'm a person, I don't care, okay? But I watched that, and my wife and I watch it, and we'll go, is he dead? Well, let's Google it. A pretty macabre way to spend your evening. But hey, how did I live without Google? How did I do it? So you can see the indexing is exceptionally, exceptionally important, and that's why they are the masters of the universe in terms of IT right now, because they understand that process of the process of indexing. Now, I'm going to take my browser back down and go back up on my Microsoft Access, and we can see, okay, as we come down here to things like, let's click on credit limit, and we start to see some of these constraints. Okay, now, first of all, I want it in terms of currency because I'm talking about money. Secondly, I see that I've put in a validation rule, okay, validation text, and in the validation text it says the price must be less than $10. Okay, so if I run a query and I put in a price higher than that, I'm going to get that kicked back to me because it has a limit on the credit limit. Right? There's another icon in there, and that's the employee ID, and that's, what is that? The little thing there, the funnel. What is that? Or that little thing? What is that thing? What does it tell me right beside that little icon? It's right beside the employee ID. What does it tell me that field is? Okay, well, I know it's a number, but go a little bit to the left, and you'll see a little icon there. What is it saying? What does the little icon tell me? It is a what? Primary key. Exactly. What's a primary key? In a database, a primary key is that when you encounter it after 12 p.m., we stop, we get out our blankie, and we get our binky, and we take a nap. And some of you need a nap. I see you come in with a crazed look on your face. Your eyes are glassy. And for some of you, I know, well, the party must have been good. For others of you, I know you were serving the Lord and staying. I won't tell you who I think it is or not. Only God knows your heart. Or some of you just simply need to clean your contact lenses. I don't know. Anybody wear contact lenses? Don't admit it. Don't have to. But here we see it's a primary key. So this primary key is the employee ID. It's a number, and let's click on it for a moment and look at the general properties below. Okay? Now, I'm going to go back to all objects, and I'm going to close off that table. And let's look at some of the queries that they're going to ask us to run here. And so we'll want to open up that Patrick. You'll want to download the Patrick materials, okay? And then you'll want to open up the access code for chapter 7, okay? And we'll open it up, take a look at it. By now, this ought to start to seem like old hat. It should start to seem somewhat repetitive. And if it is, I've accomplished my role. When the university hired me, they hired me for a reason. Many of you have instructors who you believe are far more difficult than me. You suspect they may be smarter than me. Your suspicions may well be true. So I give you kind of an easygoing class, although every now and then I, like someone coming out of a stupor, I go, wait, this isn't right. That's okay. My job is to calm you, to take you to that peaceful place where you can learn and you can grow. Learning nirvana, where all things become open to you. You can even, you see, you can't see me out there, but if you're here in class, you get the full, see, that kind of movement thing. I'm kind of doing that. I'm into it. And that redundancy is intended to bring you to a point where you go, if he says another word, I'm falling asleep. However, I'm also providing you good training. You say, what's that? First of all, you're having to deal with my personality. And you're going to encounter a lot of people like me, kind of just mean people. And I'm a mean person, and gladly so. And you're going to encounter, at times, a lot of boring meetings. So when you're in class and you go, I am so bored, say to yourself, but I'm getting ready for the business world. The business world is a whole lot like going to war. Lots of boredom, punctuated by moments of sheer terror. That's a business career. I've been there, trust me, believe me. Believe me, young people. We had chapel. You had chapel Wednesday. Did that make you go to chapel? You have to do chapel requirements? I'm glad. A lot of you heathen need to go out there and hear what they have to say. Let's take a look at this, and we'll look at 7.2, okay? And let's look at over there on page 250, all right? And you're going to notice that we start to inject some formatting into the data that we pull. If you look at the query there, and it's also over there, it's on page 250, the access query, and I've also got it up here in the text file. Let's see what we've got going on here. We've got employee ID, first name, hire date, then the format function. Now, we have a parenthesis which says we're going to format the following fields. When I said following fields, what type of speech was I using? Following fields. What would you call it? Bueller. No, it's called an alliteration. It doesn't mean you drive down the highway and throw out litter. It means I've used two words that start with the same letter and have the same sound. What do you think about that? Yes? No? Consider that a little bit of wisdom. So we're going to format the hire date, and then you'll see we're dealing with some type of text data or maybe variable characters, and so we bury it. We're dealing with text and numbers disguised as text. You say, what do you mean? Look at the quotation mark. Now, when we put it in quotation marks, we can take those numbers like the hour, or NN, and make the computer think they're text or some kind of variable character that we understand, but the computer doesn't. The jet engine under all of these often says the human has run a query, and at night when you and I are asleep and they know we're not listening, they say, "Did you see the query that they ran the other day?" Yes. What was it all about? Just like the Bible says, the angels would like to know all about salvation, but you and I know about it, and they don't. Isn't that interesting? You know stuff about things that even the angels don't know. That's from your Bible, folks. You're reading your Bible, I hope. Maybe you're not. Probably, I don't know what you read. All right, but here, and now, you'll notice in that there's another device that we use. We use what we call a column alias. Can anybody tell me where the column alias is? Okay, it's a column alias. First of all, it showed up on 5 Alive, and it was running, and Copter 5 was following as it was running, and the police were running. Oh, we had to shoot that. We had to shoot the column because it just continued to run. It would not stop. But they missed. But if column alias, where's the column alias there? We're fooling the computer a little bit more. Notice the word as, formatted date. So we're taking the hire date, okay, that column, we're going to format it in a particular way so it displays data in a particular way, and then we're going to call it as formatted date. We can use column aliases to protect our data, because if bad or nasty people know the names of our columns, i.e. the fields, i.e. the dimensions, it's simple. once they've found their way into our system, they use what's known as an SQL injection, and they pull our data up and wreak havoc with us. Executable language. Let me give you a tip. As you go on if those of you who do Go trips, let me assure you that if you go to certain parts of the world, and you take your phone or your laptop, when you exit, as the people are scanning you, they're not looking to see if you're a security risk. They're looking to see if their government successfully parasited into your system. Why? Because once you're over here and you're going back into the network here, they're here. You become a mule for them. Far more valuable than people who take heroin and swallow it to bring it into the country or do all kinds of crazy things. Mules. So if I traveled there, I'd probably buy something, use it, and pitch it. But that's just a piece of advice for me. Okay. So they're on 7.2. We're kind of seeing the construction there, and we see some more from the employees, and we're going to order it by the employee ID. So we've got a whole lot of stuff going on there in that query that we've done the select statement. We've used the format function. Okay. We've said, okay, we're going to work the hire date. We're going to format it in a particular way, and then we're going to rename the column or the field as formatted date. And you can see there at the top of page 251 the results set. Now, let's open this back up and go down to open your back down and look for all access objects. And let's see if we've got any 7s in here in terms of our queries. I don't think we did. Okay, so let's do this. Take this very first query, 7.2. Okay, and we want to get the whole thing. Now, how do I know that a query is finished? Can somebody tell me what little thing will tell me that we've ended the query? Anybody tell me? Where in the code does it tell me that we're through, I'm done, this is what I want done, I'm finished? The semicolon, exactly. And do you know why they use a semicolon? When this was being invented, the person who invented it, one of the inventors, their dad drove a semi-trailer truck. That's not true. I have no idea why we use a semicolon. It's probably something in the syntax in the machine language. But now here we are, and we're ready to run it. Now, before we run, if you look up in the far left corner, you're going to see that in the toolbar that it's gone hot. We're getting some feedback here. It says, "Hey, we're gonna run a select query." Okay, let's run it. And it says, "I've got an identified function and expression." And what is that? Oh my goodness! What could I have go wrong here? Anything? Anybody have an idea why the code won't run? Have you tried it? Does it run? Does it run? Why would it not run? Now, the author of the text gives us this code, all right? And he assures us that it's going to run. But there's a problem. And the problem is formatting. Excel can be a little persnickety about formatting. So I would probably be better off to just simply do a workaround. So how am I going to do that? Well, let's take your query that you're working on and just close it off. Get rid of it, in fact. You don't want to save it? No. And I'm going to look, and I'm looking here at page 250, okay? And I'm going to click Create, and then I'm going to go to the Query Design. And I'm going to choose the table. Can somebody tell me what table I'm working with? I'm on page 250. Which table am I working with? Okay, the employees table. So I'm going to choose the employees table right there, and I'm going to add it. Am I working with any other tables? No. Now, I'm going to select the following fields. Now, I've got a couple of ways I can do this. I can either double click first name, or I can come over here and use the drop down menu. Doesn't matter. Okay? I don't have to write the code. And so I'm going to get the first name, and I want to come down here and I want to get the hire date. Okay? And I'm going to get that from the employees, and then I'm going to order it by employee's ID. Order it by employee ID. And do I have employer ID? Yes, I do. And there it is. And I want to sort that. Now, if I want to sort these as employee IDs, I probably want to do it maybe in ascending order. I could do it descending or either one. By default, it will go to ascending order. So I'm just not even going to worry about that. But let's run the query and see what we get. Okay? Now, let's go down and take a peek under the hood and see what we got going on down there. All right? The GUI worked for us, and it's not even giving us anything in terms of the formatting. It just calls the date. Now, if I'm that concerned about it, I can do one of two things. Typically, I won't be able to go in and alter, say, the date in a table. But what I could do with this, and you'll find you'll have to do some of these types of workarounds, is I could take this query, save it, dump it into Excel, for example, and then work with that date function, and not have to mess with trying to write the code or figure it out, and just simply take it and put it over there, and then reformat it in an environment where Excel plays a lot nicer with this than does Access. Okay. Now, if I want to go ahead and change that, we'll go back to the view part. If I want to change that hire date and call it formatted, I can do so. That's pretty easy to do. I just use the as there. But that formatting, you're going to run into some problems sometimes with the format function in Excel. It can just be a little bit nasty to use. And he also gives you the Oracle equivalent. Okay? Now, I wanted to take you through a couple of other things. So let's save this as, and we'll call this 7.2. Okay? And we're good there. And we got what we wanted anyway. And so let's look at over at the bottom, page 252 is 7.3. Now that's the Access SQL, and we'll pop that open in terms of 7.3. Now, let's see what happens when we insert this. We're going to insert some data into a table. All right. Now, can somebody tell me what table we're inserting data into? Just look at the code and tell me. What's the name of the table I'm inserting it into? Become one with the code. Say it with me. I'm becoming one with the code. I'm doing a mind meld with the database. I am one with the database. I'm inserting it into what? Into what? And say it with me, everybody. SEC. SEC. Section 0703 underscore what? Exactly. We're inserting it into that table. We're going to create a record. You said, why wouldn't you use a form? Well, because let's just do it the hard way. All right. Anybody here a fan of like food shows? Watch food shows? Anybody? Oh yeah, I love the guy that does the barbecue thing. I love barbecue, and I love to watch it. It wreaks havoc with my body. I've got some health issues, so I can smell it, but I can't eat it. And so I'd say to the wife, enjoy the barbecue. Don't feel bad. I'll just watch you eat it. And she tears up a little, and then she goes, you sure it's okay? And I go, yeah. She goes, that's not true. That's a bad story. My wife is the sweetest person in the world. God's punishing her by putting me with her. Now, we're gonna do an insert statement here, and it's a kind of an interesting little critter. We're gonna insert into this lunches, SE 703 lunches, some values. Okay. Now, all of you, many of you are going to become parents. All right. And you're going to look down at a child about 5 or 6 years old, and you're going to say to yourself, it's true what they say about payback. And then you're going to realize this child has my DNA. And you're going to have that experience. And then troubles will begin. Now, I'm going to insert these values, 25. And what's that thing inside those are those hashtag things, or what are those things? What's embedded between those little pound signs? What have I got embedded there? A date. Now, knowing many of you, I can understand why you don't recognize it. Dates have been few and far between. But that's another story. That's your problem, not mine. Okay? And I'm playing there. But we've got it within a format. Hopefully it will play nice with us. And we're going to put in 25, which goes into one field, then a date, and then 202. And then you see a thing called now. What does that now say? It's the now function. This is incredibly difficult, and I don't think you could grasp it. It says now, which means what? It's a date and time stamp. Exactly. Now. Okay? Practice saying that, because when you have an adolescent, which many of you will, and you say, I'd like you to take the garbage out. Now. My mom repeated herself twice. The third time was, well, I'll let your dad know you don't want to take out the garbage. That was enough for me to go, yes, ma'am. My parents were pretty disciplined people, which is why when I ran out of the house, I got freed from home. It was like a convict out of the prison. And I'm wreaking havoc in society ever since. They did their best. God bless them. God rest their soul. All right, I'm going to insert this. So I'm going to copy it. And then go back over here. I'm going to click Create. And I'm going to go to the query design. I'll close it. I'm going to go to the SQL view. Boom. And I'm going to run the query and see what happens. You're about to append one row. Are you ready? Okay. And we just appended. How do I know I appended a row? Well, go down and look at the table, stupid, and you'll know. Is there another way? Is there something else that tells me I have appended a row? Not offended, but appended. Anything? Is there something there that's telling me I've appended a row? Anything? Bueller? Anything? If you look at the top of the toolbar, you'll see it. The sign of the plus sign, not the cross. I've written Microsoft and said, it would be a lot better if you'd make a cross there. And they won't do it. But they're heathens. And so I pray for their destruction every day. Well, as long as I'm using their software, maybe not. But it tells me I've just appended a record, and it goes hot. It gives me the graphic user interface, it gives me some feedback, okay? When I was out in the world of dating, I got feedback a lot. It was usually a slap across the face. So obviously, I was doing something wrong. Who knows? But that's query 7.3. Now, we're going to save that as 7.3. Okay? We've got that done. Now, if you take a look at the bottom of page 252, you'll see the code. All right. And then you'll see the beginning table. And then you'll see the record that we extracted. I mean, the new row that we added, excuse me. And let's go over there to the lunches table. And let's see. SEC 0703 lunches. Now let's see if you're over there. Anybody? Is it over there? Have you found it? Anyone? I'm still looking. Oh, there's 703 lunches table. Let's see input. There it is, the lunches. And there is our record with a date and time stamp. See it? How many of you have had lunch? How many of you have not had lunch? How many of you have had breakfast? I see too few hands for breakfast. Okay? Let me recommend a good breakfast. Some pizza left over, maybe some Dr. Pepper, a cigarette, and maybe one of those energy drinks. And I think you're good to go. What do you think? Now, you seem skeptical, and wisely so. Here, my friends, is a true disciple. Why? Like Zacchaeus, he climbed into the top of the tree to see who this madman is. Welcome to class. God bless you. You're one of my favorites. I'm not one of yours, and I understand that, and I don't blame you a bit. Okay, now, if you go and you take a look at that table, we just added a record. And again, it would have been far easier for us to add that. Now, why would I go ahead and put the now in? Can someone tell me? I'm begging you, tell me. Why would I want, look, I'm on my knees. Tell me why. Why would I put now in that query? Why, young people? Why would I do it? But God have mercy on yourself, you won't tell me. Anybody? Why did I put now in there? Why? Why would I put now? Why? A little uncomfortable? I'm not. I'm going to go to fetal here in a minute. Ooh, that's not good. I put now in there so I could date and time stamp the change. Why would I want to do that? So that if someone came back and said we've had changes made to this table that were unauthorized, I have the date and time stamp. And so I know who the culprit was. Just like they've got videos and stuff to watch us. I know they are. They're somewhere here. I hear them. Do you? You hear that sound, that kind of low pitch? Anybody hearing that too? Okay. All righty. I tell the dean today, I was on my knees with them, begging them to learn, and they wouldn't do it. What will we do? We need disciples out in the business world, and they won't go. I said, put your net on the left side. And when it was filled with fish, they said, this is too heavy. I will not pull it up, Jesus. Now, I got to tell you something. What a wonderful, is he not the coolest Savior in the world? They're in the middle of a lake, and the wind's whipping in there, and they wake him up, and he goes, huh? What's happening? Oh, we're about to drown. He goes, man, shut up. And everything was still. And then they come in, they've been fishing all night. Anybody here done night fishing? Any night fishermen? It's kind of fun. You have to watch out for, critters. You don't want to jump in the water at night, particularly down in places like Lake Texoma or Eufaula. Who knows what will be there? They come home, they're tired. They had a rough day in accounting 101. And then they fished all night and they didn't get nothing. And what did Jesus do? Did he say, you need to go get a Zebco and you'd catch all the fish you want, or if you'd watch Oklahoma fishing, you'd do well? He said, no. Throw it on the left. And boom. A pretty cool Savior. Someone you should get to know if you don't. Now, I'm going to try to be a little evangelical. I am an evangelical. Proudly so. My Bible says, go into the world and make disciples. I don't see anything that says ask or persuade. It says make disciples of them. I'm good to go. Okay. I rest my case. I have begged you, pleaded, I've done everything I can. I've tried to bring you some human drama, some humor. We've run the gamut. And still, I don't like naming. Databases are not nice. Yeah, probably some of you are out there on Match.com or something with a false picture of yourself. One of these days, they'll find who you are. So, if anything, use it for that. Well, the text is going to walk you through some other issues. For example, there at the bottom of page 255, the format function, not that again. And the authors give us some types of warnings over there on page 254. Now, they begin to talk about sequences. A sequence, serial numbers, a sequence of transactions, or a sequence in terms of an object like employees, and creating those sequences and working with them and pulling them out of databases. And so they walk us through some examples of that in the code. Now, page 260. All right. So go to him 260. Some of you have heard this story before. But when I was a youngster, junior high and high school, during the sermons, if the sermon ran on too long, like I am today, although we're not finished with class, my friends and I, we had a pastor who said, we will not stop singing Just As I Am until someone comes forward. So we had an agreement. One, it's lunchtime. Two, it's time to watch the Cowboys. I am not going to let church get in my way of having my lunch and watch my Cowboys. Any Cowboy fans? No? Oh, yes. Love the Cowboys. Anyway, we had a high sign. And so one of us would go forward and rededicate our life. We didn't get saved because then you got to get dunked and all that. And I didn't sign the card for being a missionary. It ain't going to happen. I was afraid I'd do that. I thought, always says I'm going to accidentally sign, and they're going to go, Brother Keith here said he's going to go to Africa. And it was my turn, and this old Brother Keith's going to rededicate his life. After about 6 months, my mother turned to me one day on the way to church and said, what's wrong with you? Then I had to spill the beans. And she said, good plan. One of my favorite things is a youth. A youth? That's how they say it. A youth. How many of you ever seen the movie Cousin Vinny? Cousin Vinny, good movie, isn't it? Some naughty parts, but good movie. Well, as a youth, one of my favorite things was right before church, about 10 minutes before church started, I like to go around to the corner of the back of our auditorium where a lot of our deaconry and and upstanding folks are out there a hacking a fag, smoking as fast as they could. We don't believe in drinking. We don't believe in dancing, but we believe in smoking. And I like to go back there and go, pastor's coming. And boy, yeah, the cigarettes would be going out. Then they started figuring out it was me. I have a problem, which is why at one point my time here had to end. And mom and daddy said, enough is enough. You can pay for it yourself. And I learned a hard lesson about the cost of education. Well, let's go back to our access, and we're going to run that code. And so I'm going to close this. Let's click create, and we'll do the query design. Close it off. We'll get bound to the SQL, and we're going to run 7.8, and that's over on page 260. And we're going to alter that table. Now, when I just ran that query, we altered the table. We altered it, and we added a column called the new number counter. Now, if you look up at the toolbar, what you're going to see is it told you that, because as you look down, you'll see data definition. So I just changed or altered that table. All right. I could have done the same thing if I just went into the table, opened it up in design view, and did it there. And they show you the beginning and the ending tables there for 7.8. Now, I mentioned about the data dictionary, formats, sequences, indexes. Listen, I'm trying to kind of cull through this to see what here is going to be really of some benefit to you other than just having you mindlessly run code. Okay, go over to page 279, all right? Is everybody on 279 in your book? How do you have your book? Are you people with the book? Hold it up. Hold it high. Proud. Hold that book up. This is a book. It is not dumb. It's to make me smart and have lots of fun. This book, and if the next time I have class and I ask people to hold up their books, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell everybody, those who don't have a book, you're going to get your book, and I'm going to make you hold it above your head and run around campus screaming, I will bring my book, I will bring my book. You said that sounds vaguely like boot camp. Yeah, all kinds of fun there. But if Forrest Gump could get through it, so can you. You know Forrest's secret? Yes, drill sergeant. I had one who said, I don't like people like you, and I don't like college people. And it was a long 8 weeks, but I survived. So we've altered that. Now, I directed you to page 279 for a simple reason. Every one of those are additions or changes. Those are insert statements. I could do that much quicker if I'm using a form. There are four different insert statements there. And the very first statement, I create a table, okay? And if I'm in the GUI, I can just create the table a lot easier. But I've got code there. And look what I got going on. I'm going to create the table, 07-118 my days, and then a sequence ID counter. That'll be a field. My event, which is a text format, 25 limit. And then my date and time format, and that's it. Boom. And you've created the table. Or you could go in the GUI and do it that way. All right? Now, that pretty much ends it. You said we didn't run that many queries with 7. No. The meat of chapter 7 is the narrative that deals with the data definition and indexing. All right? That's where the strength of your data, that's the strength of where the database comes from, and that's how fast and how accurately it can get data for you. And the better it is at that, the better it is at providing you the basis for your business intelligence efforts that are going to be driven by your dashboard. Now, just for one final little thing, a couple of final things, because see, y'all start at 12:30, right? And I get to torture you till when? 3 o'clock? No. 12:45. 75 minutes. It's a magic number. 75 minutes of instruction. On some people, it's about as good as 3. On others, it's as good as 800 hours. It just depends where we are. Now, all that being said, I'd like you to do for just a moment and open up a new tab, open your browser back up, and look for dashboards. You hear people talk about them all the time, and I want you to see some examples of them. All right? And they'll show, here's one for customer service. All right, and here's some examples. Now you can click through and examine this, but notice what they're giving you. They're giving you some key pieces, some metrics, if you will, that are visualized, put into a readily understandable visual format. You can't get there unless you have a good database system that provides you the basis to extract the data from it. Okay? And so while I joked around and all that stuff today, this is deadly serious, because if you don't have good business intelligence in your company, then you're probably asking the wrong questions. You're using the wrong metrics, and you're lost as a goose in a rainstorm. It used to be that you could have a small little tiny business in the corner of Kickapoo, and you were out there and nobody cared. The global economy didn't have any impact on you. Today, it's just not like that. Every single company, no matter how small or how large, is competing on a global basis. You're competing in usually 3 ways. 2 ways. 1, you're competing for customers, people that will pay you money for what you want to do. 2, you're competing for suppliers, vendors, partners, people who will support you. I didn't understand this until the last year my dad was alive. And yeah, he knew I was a college professor. I did some stuff out of business too. But his last year, he was doing consulting. And he went out and met with a man. It was a little grocery store out in western Oklahoma. And he said, "I'm sorry." And he'd done business with this guy on and off one way or the other for almost 40 years. And he said, "I'm sorry, we're not delivering groceries out here anymore." And the guy said, "What?" We said, "We're not bringing you groceries." "Why not?" "I've always paid on time." "Yes." "Well, why not?" "Because you don't have enough volume to make it worth our while to come out here." "Where am I going to get my groceries?" My dad said, "I really don't know. Your sales level is just not enough to make it worth your while." Imagine hearing that. Your business is finished. You're done. So finding business partners and suppliers is the other piece of all of this. And you need that for the business intelligence piece as well. Well, thank you for your time and your attention. And be safe this weekend. Does anybody know, who are we playing in football? Southern Arkansas. Okay. So Arkansas is a bunch of cowards. They wouldn't play us. Yeah. So I figured Mississippi, Alabama. My dream for us is the day when we go play Alabama and they give us $3 million so they can score 90 points on us. But we'll take the $3 million.
I like that idea.
However, there will be that day when we beat them. I see it in your future. It's part of my vision for OBU. Or we get the NCAA death penalty. Either one, I'm good. Football fans? All right. Any big games coming up? Any Titanic clashes? Major League Baseball fans? Any here? We got one American. That's good. 2 Americans. How about any other championships going on? It seems like I watch after Fox Sports is over, I see soccer in Germany or somewhere, and it's always looks like something going on. Any soccer fans? And they got all these teams from everywhere. I have no idea who those people are. Okay. God bless you. Thank you for your time. And you've got a 7 to upload if you haven't already. And you've got some, I think, some quizzes and some other things to do. Thank you very much. And you're welcome.